I think we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. You are in the Closing the Gap on Food and Nutrition Security session. If that wasn't a session you wanted to be in, now's the time to pop out, but hopefully you're staying with us. So today we are going to be discussing and sharing a little bit more about some program models and partnerships that support both families with children in the household and also support local agriculture. We're planning for about a 30-minute presentation and then have time at the end for questions. If you would like to pop any questions that you have in real time in the chat, we'll make sure to either answer those as we go or save some time for them at the end. And to begin, we are starting each session with sharing the newly revised Ohio Nutrition Incentive Network vision and mission. So our vision is all Ohioans have equitable access to healthy, locally grown foods within their communities, and the resources to procure them. Diet-related health diseases and disparities are no longer a public health crisis. Ohio agriculture is an economically viable and ecologically regenerative industry. It is an integral component of the Ohio food system. Its products are widely available. Ohio farmers and food workers are valued, respected, and appropriately compensated for their contribution to the health and well-being of their communities. And our mission is to increase nutrition security while strengthening Ohio's local food system. We're also beginning each session with a land acknowledgement, which we have sourced from the Ohio State University Office of Diversity and Inclusion. A land acknowledgement recognizes and respects the relationship that exists between Indigenous peoples and their ancestral and contemporary territories. We acknowledge that the state of Ohio occupies the ancestral and contemporary territory of the Shawnee, Potawatomi, Delaware, Miami, Peoria, Seneca, Wyandot, Ojibwe, and Cherokee peoples. These lands were ceded in the 1795 Treaty of Greenville and the forced removal of tribes through the Indian Removal Act of 1830. We'd like to invite you, if you are interested, to change your or add your pronouns to the end of your name, either by going to the three dots in the corner of your image and renaming yourself, or else just dropping them in the chat if you'd like. So I'm actually kicking us off with some information about a new program that we piloted in 2020. So what is this new program, you might ask? We are calling it, or have been calling it, the Tanf Fruit and Vegetable Coupon Program. Perhaps not the most invigorating or original name, but gets the point across for sure. And so TANF stands for the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, which I had never heard about until we appropriated funds from this source through the state of Ohio in the last biennium. So in July of 2019, we received $500,000 over 2 years to support the families that are eligible for these dollars in purchasing additional produce. So it's a federal block grant that is provided to states, and then states can decide how they want to use the fund. So funds go towards cash assistance to families that are eligible. They go to childcare services, food services like ours that help support the health of families, child safety equipment, even like car seats and things. So there's a wide variety of uses for these dollars at the state level. And like I said, in 2019, we were one of those organizations that received funding. So the eligibility requirements for the fruit and vegetable program are set by the state and at the federal level. And anyone who meets these three criteria are eligible to receive TANF funds. So it's a slightly higher income level than SNAP or WIC. So we're able to capture individuals that are making just a little bit more money. And these folks at 200% of the federal poverty level would not be eligible for WIC or SNAP benefits. The individual also has to have a minor child in their household or be pregnant, and then be a US citizen or meet a citizenship exception as defined by the state. And so, like I said, the reason that these funds are, I think, an innovative source for nutrition incentive programming is because it does allow for an expansion in who is eligible to receive dollars. Um, we're, I think, very probably all familiar on this call with the reality that there are a number of people that slip through the cracks of not being eligible for federal food assistance. And so these dollars have been instrumental in helping to expand the individuals that we as Produce Perks can serve. So we've done this through two models in 2020. And of course, piloting a new program during a pandemic is interesting, but we've had a lot of good results and also a lot of takeaways as to how we might revise and what we would want to expand upon if we are written into the state budget, which we will be, and we'll find out in July for sure. So we did a coupon program, and then we also did a produce box delivery program, which a colleague of mine is going to talk about in a few minutes. So for the coupon program, any eligible family could sign up for the Tanf fruit and vegetable program and receive a coupon booklet worth $40 redeemable at participating locations for fruits and vegetables. Our original intent was that this would be a program where we could be introducing families to farmers markets, those community food access points within their neighborhoods, and also introducing them, if they receive SNAP benefits, as many would, to the Produce Perks SNAP matching program as well. So we chose a $40 coupon booklet as an amount that we felt was incentivizing to make that first time trip to the farmer's market or the grocery store where these might be redeemable. But our original intention was that it would be a one-time enrollment and a one-time issuance of a coupon booklet to then start that habit of going to a new food access point. We did, due to COVID, receive permissions from our granting agency to allow people to sign up multiple times. And we did see that happen, which I think was quite helpful during the pandemic to folks. So we distributed the coupons in three different manners. We hosted farmers market events across the state where individuals could come and sign up with us and receive that coupon booklet and spend it immediately that day at the farmers market. We also worked with a number of partner organizations that work with clients that would be eligible for the program, and they recruited and signed up individuals and provided them coupons. And then we've been experimenting with an online registration process as well with some partner organizations. The farmers market events that we hosted were the primary way that we got out these dollars in 2020. So in 2020, we had 23 coupon distribution events, like I said, at farmers markets across the state. And then we will send this out with follow-up information to you next week, but we have scheduled 2021 events in May and June as well. So we invite you to promote those if you're here in Ohio in one of the communities. So we worked with a variety of distribution partners, and I have to say that this was one of the, I think, for me, a most important takeaway from this project is we were able to connect with a number of organizations and services that are connecting with these types of eligible clients. And just resoundingly heard that these types of partners, so hospital networks, Akron Children's Hospital, for example, a Head Start program with Alta Care Group, that they are actively looking for ways to help their patients and their clients with food security. And it's a very, it's a process that's hard to navigate for folks. Referrals to the food banks aren't always enough, for example. And I think that we have this great now foundation of partners that are walking alongside us and interested in exploring how we can better connect vulnerable families with the food resources that they need. We found a couple of interesting things from our evaluation of the pilot program. So first of all, probably not surprisingly, we found that when we distributed coupons at farmers market events, those were more likely to be redeemed than if a partner organization was, say, signing people up in their office. And so it's a very important thing to remember in future program design and how we can further impact redemption rates moving forward. So that was the first finding. Overall, we signed up 2,472 individuals, and more than half of them redeemed coupons, which is fairly impressive for a coupon program, a total of 53% redemption rate. And again, that's kind of right in the middle of those very high percentage of redemption rates at farmers market events, and then some lower redemption rates from offsite distributions. In total, we were able to get out $57,822 in fruit and vegetable purchases through those coupons. Since it was a pilot program, we, in 2020, so this is just 2020 counties, we are expanding our reach a little bit in 2021 as we wrap up this pilot program. So we just offered it in a few different counties across the state where we had the highest number of farmers markets and redemption sites for the coupons, and then also the strongest partnerships with organizations that could help to sign folks up. And so this is just kind of a breakdown of where we had the most success in signing individuals up. And I do want to say, I'm going to go back a slide because I do want to say that, so Cuyahoga County, we partnered with the WIC program there to offer our coupons as an extra benefit to WIC clients. So that's the Women, Infants, and Children program. And so that partnership, I think by far is why our reach is so much higher in Cuyahoga County. WIC is an excellent partner of ours across the state. And so this 60% of individuals redeeming the coupons, I think is quite significant for this kind of a pilot program, especially when you're considering that many of these individuals would have been first-time farmers market shoppers. So I believe that we met our goal of exposing people to new food access points within their community. And then the 53% redemption rate is also quite high for a coupon program. Not surprisingly, kind of with the number of people that we saw signing up, these are where the dollars went in 2020. It'll be a little bit more dispersed in 2021 as we've added some new counties and new events. And then we also took a look at the characteristics of individuals who signed up. So we signed up individuals in 335 zip codes across the state, and 51% of those individuals volunteered that they were also SNAP eligible. So that's great. We were able to expose them to the SNAP Match Produce Perks program. And then of those who redeemed, we saw that 46% were SNAP beneficiaries, which meant that they were definitely exposed to that program, the Produce Perks program, when they use their coupons at the market. And then finally, this is just kind of a look at those customer zip codes who redeemed their coupon. So a fairly good reach, I would say, to those outside of even the counties where we were offering the events. So interesting stuff. But I'm going to stop there. And so that was the Tanf Fruit and Vegetable Coupon Program. We also utilized the funds in a produce delivery pilot, and I'm going to invite my colleague, Audrey Reever, who is a VISTA with the Summit Food Coalition, to present on that project. It's a very innovative solution, and I think a scalable one we'll hear about for using these dollars in the future.
Thanks, Anna. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. There we go. Can everyone see that? Okay, great. So like Anna said, I'm Audrey. I'm the AmeriCorps Vista working with Summit Food Coalition for this year. And I'm going to tell you about a pilot program that we started last summer. So this program was the Local Produce Delivery Program, which essentially was a 12-week program where we enrolled 50 Akron area families to receive 6 deliveries of $30 worth of fresh produce from a local farm. So essentially, families who were enrolled got a free CSA share every other week for 12 weeks. Like I said, all these families had to be TANF eligible, and that was mainly the only restriction in enrolling families. The only other one was that they had to live within a certain delivery radius. So we had to make sure we could actually get the produce to them. And this program was completely free for families. All they had to do was enroll, and then the produce got sent to their homes. The main goal of this program, too, was to eliminate transportation and financial barriers that prohibit families from accessing markets or accessing high quality produce in general. So this was a really great way of literally meeting people where they were at and eliminating these barriers that keep people from accessing markets. Because like the coupons are great when people can get there, but when people can't make it, this is a good alternative. And especially starting this program in COVID, you know, we saw a lot of people who were staying home, a lot of people who couldn't leave their house, higher rates of unemployment and higher rates of food insecurity. And so a program like this really aimed at helping those people who do face larger barriers of accessing produce. Another benefit of this program too, we worked with 2 local farms to provide the produce, and we were able to spend this TANF money and give it back directly to our local food economy by spending it on our local farms. So how we actually went about doing this, how we enrolled families, and how we went about delivering. So we attended a Summit Lake Farmers Market, which Summit Lake is a community in Akron that tends to be lower income. It's also where Let's Grow Akron, one of the farms we partnered with, is located. And so we really wanted to keep that food within that community instead of taking it out and giving it to other people. We're like, it was grown in this community. We want to serve the families in this community. So we attended a farmers market there and enrolled families who came by. We also partnered with a couple Akron public schools that had United Way Family Resource Centers. So we went to those schools when they were doing free lunch distributions. And so families would come pick up lunches and we would enroll families that way. And I will say that both these in-person methods were highly effective in the sense that we enrolled a large percentage of families who showed up to them. So the people who attended this farmers market and the people who came to pick up lunches, we enrolled a lot of them. But that being said, not that many families were there to begin with. And so then we were able to switch enrollment to online, and we got way more families through there because we were just better able to access them. So for this pilot, we enrolled 50 families. That was 196 total people, 80 adults, and 116 kids. So great reach. And then how we went about actually delivering the produce. So we partnered with Let's Grow Akron and Frontline Farms. They were the farms who made the produce bags that we had. And we had them actually come drop them off the night before, and then we would distribute them the day after. And Summit Food Coalition didn't actually have any refrigeration space. We couldn't hold the produce overnight. And so we were able to partner with the Well CDC, which is a shared use kitchen in Akron that had some refrigeration space. So we were able to store the produce there overnight and then in the morning come and distribute from there, which was a great partnership. And I do want to highlight too that this program relied heavily on Summit Food Coalition's partnerships throughout the community, using help enrolling to the Well who helped us store food to the farms. Like this was a highly collaborative project. So then to actually deliver the produce, we partnered with DoorDash, which we were able to do through a partnership with the Akron Canton Regional Food Bank. They're the one who has a connection to DoorDash, and we were able to utilize that connection to deliver the produce. So we would load up the cars, and then the cars would go and distribute the produce. All of it got distributed by early afternoon at the latest. And so that's how we did it, essentially. And then during the last 2 weeks of the program, we sent out feedback surveys wanting to get more information from the families, like, did they enjoy the program? What feedback do they have so we can improve it in the future? So I'm going to go over some of the feedback that we got. So we asked families, just in general, how they liked the program, give it a rating of 1 to 5, and tell us why you gave it that rating. Most families really enjoyed it. They gave us a 5. Some gave us a 4. Only one family gave us a 3. So it was very successful in that sense. When we asked people why they gave it that rating, most people said it was great. They didn't have any feedback. They just enjoyed the program and were happy to be a part of it. We got some people talking about how the deliveries were always on time and they knew when they were happening, which was great. It shows that the partnership with DoorDash was a successful one, and one we could utilize going forward. I also think it's interesting looking at the size of the families we had enrolled, and this also just puts their answers into a bit more context as we're going through the surveys. So if a family is saying that this was way too much produce and their family wasn't able to utilize it, and it's a 2 family member household, that makes a little more sense. And same if they're like a 7-person household and this wasn't quite enough produce for their family, it puts their answers into context. So we can see most of the families we enrolled were between 2 to 4 members. We also asked them for specific feedback on the produce that they were given. One of our fears with this program is they are getting essentially a CSA share, so they don't have any choice over the produce that they're going to get, and they're probably going to get some items that they're not familiar with, they don't know how to use, and so we were kind of worried about how big of a barrier that would be when giving out these produce deliveries. But what we saw was most families used either all or most of the produce that they got. The reasons they didn't use it are listed. They were able to select multiple options for that question. And you can see most of the food, like, it went bad. So, they couldn't quite get around to it before utilizing it. And then I expected personally, like, the lack of knowledge of how to prepare certain vegetables to be a lot higher than it was, but we only had 5 families that reported that being an issue. We also asked them, specifically what food did they like, what food did they not like, and what do they wish was included in the future. And so we got tomatoes and lettuce/greens being the most enjoyed products, which I think that makes a lot of sense. Those are foods you don't necessarily have to cook. They're really easy to eat. Everyone's very familiar with them. And then most difficult to use was Swiss chard and eggplant. I think that also makes a lot of sense. A lot of people don't know what Swiss chard is. And while most people do know what an eggplant is, very few people have actually cooked with one. So I think that also makes sense for the responses we got. And then for produce, people wish was included fruit and cucumbers. Normally with CSA shares, you don't get that much fruit. You are getting a more vegetable heavy delivery. And we started the program a little bit later in the season, which is why I think we didn't have as many cucumbers in the boxes as people would have liked. Then we also asked families to, report their fruit and vegetable intake before they started the program, and then what was it during the program. So we could see, was this program actually helping people eat healthier? Did it actually eliminate any barriers they were facing? And we saw a 73% increase in the amount in fruits and vegetables intake for across the board. So as you can see, like, this yellow bar is all the families. And so we had a wide variety of, like, some families eat a ton of vegetables, some families eat no vegetables. But during the course of the program, all families reported at least eating 2 to 3 cups of vegetables a day. So while this program was going on, we can see that at the very least, families felt like they were eating more vegetables and felt like they had increased access to them. And then this is my favorite part of the program, was hearing people's testimonies about their experience, what they enjoyed, and how helpful this program was to them. So I encourage you to read some of these. I'm not going to read them aloud, but this was my favorite part of the feedback, was just saying how helpful this program was to so many people. And a surprising outcome for me, at least, that I kind of want to highlight was, as I said before, we're kind of worried about giving these families unfamiliar food. While we, want to support these farms and think it's great that we're giving them fresh local options, I was afraid that the barrier might be a little bit high for people in terms of being able to use the produce. But what I actually found out was that this gave families an opportunity to experiment with food that they normally wouldn't have. Because when you're a low-income family who doesn't have that much money to spend on food, when you are making food purchases, you're not going to take risks. You're not going to try a new vegetable. You're not going to experiment in the same way. And so by having the produce delivered to them at no cost, and they were just given it and had to, figure out what to do with it, it allowed a lot of families to experiment in a way that they probably wouldn't have been able to without the program. They were also able to, have healthy options for their kids, which multiple people mentioned, which is great. And other people talked about being able to cook together as a family and try these new foods. So this program also enabled, more food connections within a family, which I think is a great outcome of this program. So that's kind of everything to do with the pilot last year. And then since it was successful, we are doing it again this year. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the changes we've made. So for this summer, we got more funding from Produce Perks Midwest to expand the program. We also got a grant from United Way, so we were able to expand how many families we could serve from 50 to 250, which is amazing. We also added 2 more farms to provide produce. So we added Crown Point Ecology Center and Baker's Fresh Produce and Honey to join Frontline Farms and Let's Grow Akron, who are both returning this year to provide produce. Since now we need a place to store all of this produce that we still don't have, and it's outpaced the capacity of the well, we are actually able to utilize a refrigerated pop-up truck. So we're going to go drive around to all of the farms, pick up all the produce, and then deliver it the same day through DoorDash using a very similar system. And this pop-up truck we're able to use through our partnership with Akron Canton Regional Food Bank. And then as far as how we're going through enrolling families, we're still trying to reach the Summit Lake community. Let's Grow Akron has shared this program with its community, and so we're seeing a lot of people enroll from that. We're also enrolling families from United Way resource centers, so they're pulling in families who are at their schools. And then another organization that we're going to try to partner with this year, in addition to those two, are the Summit Community Pathways Hub. And so this is a group that tries to provide wraparound services for at-risk patients. Specifically, we're looking to work with the hubs that are looking to improve birth outcomes. And so just offering them another service to have, good food in their lives. So that's a look at the program this year. We're currently in the process of enrolling around 150 families. So we're right in the middle of it.
Thank you, Audrey. It is a very impressive program with such clear outcomes for both the folks using the program and also for the local farmers that you've worked with. And so excited to see that kind of expansion happening in this year. And I'll just add that I think this is one of the more promising strategies that came out of this funding from the state, the Tanf funds, and that when we hear that we have received state funding in this next budget cycle, I think this is one of the programs we'd like to potentially see scale to other parts of the state and use your learnings to see how other folks might be able to do something similar. So I'm going to open this up to questions. You're welcome. We're kind of a small enough group, I think, if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask a question or drop it in the chat. I did see just a couple of comments commenting how that partnership with DoorDash was so innovative. And let's see, we have another question of what did you deliver the produce in? Bags, boxes, plastic containers, etc.
Yeah, so and Beth put it in the chat, but last summer we used bags. So the farms had their own like brown paper bags that they would load it in, and we were doing 25 deliveries each week, and so that was fine. But since we're scaling up this year and we're using a truck to transport everything, we've switched to wax boxes so we can stack them and transport everything a little bit easier. Yeah, we provided the produce boxes to the farms. We're actually going to deliver them, next week, so it'll be exciting.
I was, oh, go ahead. Does somebody have a question?
I did, but I'll hold it. You go ahead, Anna.
Well, I was curious, and forgive me if I missed it, but with the expansion with more families, are you also expanding the number of producers that will be contributing to the project?
Yeah, so we had 2 farms last year, and then this year we're expanding to 4 farms. So we're adding Crown Point, and we're also adding Baker's Fresh produce and honey.
That's really great. That was my exact question, Anna.
We have another question. What was the process like in getting the farmers on board with doing this type of project, which is slightly different than a traditional CSA, I would say. So talk a bit about that experience.
Yeah, Beth, if you want to actually speak to this because you had more conversations, but I will say all the farms are very excited to be a part of this program.
Yeah, one of the reasons that we decided to do we decided to do every other week deliveries for a couple of different reasons. One, if you're not used to incorporating that level of fruit and vegetables in your diet, it can be really overwhelming. But also we wanted to make sure that the farmers had a steady number of CSA shares each week, that it wasn't 25 one week or 51 week and 0 the next week. And it was actually really simple to enroll them. It's not a hard thing to do when you tell the farmers that you're going to be able to pay them for their product. And that process was really easy too. So they're excited to participate. They're excited to be able to get this to customers that they likely wouldn't be able to reach otherwise. So it wasn't difficult to recruit farmers at all once they learned that they would be able to be paid and participate and serve community members who really needed food.
I'll call attention to Tia's question in the chat box, and Audrey, Beth, turn it to both of you to answer, but she asked how this can be expanded to other counties. And I think that's a broader answer to that, but perhaps Tia, if I may, or feel free, Tia, just unmute yourself and ask the question directly and have the dialogue. But from a transportation perspective, DoorDash being a unique partner there within the Akron region, and Tia, I, again, don't want to speak for you and what your framing of the question was, but Beth, Audrey, perhaps speak a bit to expansion opportunities or how to connect those dots from a transportation perspective.
Yeah, so we were really fortunate to be able to partner with DoorDash for this program. And like I said, that's a partnership we're able to utilize through the food bank. And so as far as, replicating that. I'm not the best person to talk about it because I'm not the one facilitating that partnership. I will say, though, I've talked to some other groups that have been able to get volunteers who are down to drive things around. And I talked to, I think, a group in Columbus who she said she had like a ton of volunteers and they were able to utilize them to drive around and distribute produce. So I think, that's, if you have volunteer capacity, that's one way you could utilize it.
And I'll add that we've done some similar partnerships in the Dayton area with Mission to Mary Farm. And Anna, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe some of the transportation costs were integrated into the cost of the CSA share, essentially, right? And it allowed that farmer to make those deliveries within certain radiuses accordingly. So again, that can be a way to identify that transportation, cover the costs in certain respects that the producer may bear.
Yeah, I think that there's potential options as we think about scaling. Obviously, the direct to the consumer's door is ideal. And like Audrey said, that was a very fortunate partnership and synergy that occurred in the Akron area. But I know we've also talked to some other partners that utilize TANF funds in, say, a childcare setting. So there may be options to kind of think through those drop-off points. So if that family is utilizing, say, in-home care with an individual or a child care center, that we might be able to get food there at least directly from the farmer. So I think there's a lot of options and possibilities. I would love to see DoorDash perhaps expand to other areas, that type of partnership. But yeah, it's a good question. And Tia, please do reach out to me when we find out about funding in July. Then I think we can start to think about the best communities that we might be able to bring programs like these to.
If I may, I can't obviously speak for DoorDash, but I think that this is something that they are looking to figure out ways to be able to contribute these kinds of delivery services to nonprofits for reduced rates. And so that's something I think just to keep our eyes and ears open for. And we're not actually sure how much longer we'll be able to use those services, whether those services will be able to use those throughout the summer. Our partnership with our food bank, though, is also something that really allows us to be able to utilize their vehicles if that DoorDash partnership ends. So we can use their vehicle to deliver to drop-off points or, set up similar kind of delivery services if that partnership is unable to continue. So I think looking at all of us have pantries in our communities, looking to those partnerships to see if they have vehicles that might be able to be utilized, especially if you're serving their clientele. That might be a pretty interesting partnership to see whether or not it could be formed and serve their same clients as well. And there was a question about extending this to individuals in need. I think because of the fact that the funding is from TANF, it's required to be families. I think in the future, if there are other funding sources outside of TANF, certainly it could be tailored to seniors or to a whole host of other populations that are really in need of food access. I think one thing to keep in mind, though, is quantity. Because as our slide showed, if you have a smaller number of household members, it's really difficult to get through all of the produce. So just keeping that in mind when you're working with your farm partners to make sure that the produce amounts are appropriate for the population that you're serving.
So I actually was the one that asked this question specifically because we deal a lot with students, and one of the things that we are struggling to do is to get like fresh produce. So we work with the Salvation Army, which has a agreement with the food bank that they can supply us through, like, the Salvation Army handles it. In addition to, we also work with United Way, but like just getting our hands on the fresh produce. So we have like a big gap with that with students, where it's just like a lot of canned and like dry food. So we're trying to figure out how to like expand that. And since this was like a lot of stuff in the area and like working with a lot of the local farmers, I was just like curious, because I know like the funding was for families, but I wasn't sure if there's like any potential like funding options for individuals, or like where, because I know it's still in the beginning, but like maybe where it's heading, or just to put it on the docket for that, because we do have like a lot of traditional and non-traditional students, and a lot of them, their family structures look a little different, and at least a lot of the ones that I've dealt with so far don't really have children. So that's just kind of where my question was coming from.
It's a great point, and definitely something that's been brought up before about that there's need among the student population. And again, that's a population that is often perhaps overlooked in programs like these. So I've written myself a note. No, I think immediate funding sources, but something that we should certainly be keeping on our minds as we seek new funding. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so.
I do know that we have some farmers on this call, and I'm not going to call them out by name, but perhaps they could share some thoughts, insight, just to generate some dialogue here as well. From a farmer perspective, how best to reach these customers on their end, right? Or what they'd perhaps like to see continue to evolve in this direction. And to the farmers that I know on here, if not, no worries. Well, Anna, do we want to post the link to the next and final session, which I certainly hope everyone attends? It should be a really good one. There we go.
Muted. Dropped it in the chat. And so in this next session, Rachel Tays from the Ohio Ecological Food and Farm Association will be sharing some data-driven descriptions of the needs farmers have for a thriving local food system, and how incentive programming can impact local agriculture. So we very much hope that you will hop on that one. The link is in the chat for you to register and join. It starts at 3 p.m. And if this is your last session with us today, thank you so much for joining us. And I think I mentioned earlier, we will be sending out emails with follow-up information and presentations and such early next week. So you'll hear from us. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Audrey and Beth.
Why don't we leave this this room open here for a bit in case folks do want to have some dialogue and get to that session link. But otherwise, take care all.
I think everyone's topped out, Travis.
You're telling me, Dan. You can put me on that list too.
Yep. I think that's about it.
That's a wrap.
When's the flower weekend? It's forthcoming, right?
Yeah, it's Memorial Day weekend.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Maybe stressful for you, but
Yeah. A little bit. It's a lot of fun once you get working it.
yeah, I would imagine so. Yeah. That's great.
Well, I'll catch you guys later.
All right, take care, Dan.
You too.
Heather, I don't know if you're still on, but I didn't want to get into a brainstorming session within the larger group there. And I'll hold on the brainstorming session for now. But if you want to reach out to myself, to Anna, but to our team, it'd be good to connect just offline and have more of a brainstorming session, as I do think there are opportunities and innovations that can be pushed forward to perhaps accomplish some of the goals that you have and the students that you're serving, right? So I'll put my email in the chat box here for you. Give me a moment, and which is simply tennisapproach.org. But yeah, if that would be of interest, I again do think, regardless of state appropriations that may be forthcoming, especially for students that may be SNAP beneficiaries, to connect some of the dots and so forth.
Yeah, we talked about potentially doing like SNAP benefit like signups, like either events or like learning how to help our students with that if like we see that as a need and that they qualify. So that's something on our radar that we're also thinking about as well.
Yeah. I think we'll continue to see a stronger online presence for SNAP purchasing here in Ohio. And again, depending on how that infrastructure continues to develop, I could see some bridges being built, if you will, right? So to reach students that are not TANF eligible, right? Because that funding is serving families specifically, but in a manner that can incorporate transportation delivery of to a student center or something along those lines. But again, no brainstorming now, but yeah, let's connect in the weeks ahead and think out loud about how to put something forward.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Audrey, great job. Good slides. Good work.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a bunch of notes and then I didn't look at them at all during the presentation.
I tend to wing it myself usually, so good job.
Well,
Time to exit the room.
yeah, the more we chat, the more we'll have to edit the recording when we go to post it, which I bet is going to be my job. So, all right, I'll see you at 3. Thank you again, Audrey.